Everybody settle down, we'll go ahead and get started. Mara, do you mind leading us in
Don't mind
that?
at all.
Thank you.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord Jesus. Lord, we thank you for the beauty in the day. We thank you for the very air that we breathe. Heavenly Father, we pray, oh God, that you will bless us as we go about making great decisions for our city, Lord. Help us to just be mindful, Lord, that the citizens are counting on us, Lord. Heavenly Father, we pray, oh God, that you would just bless us with sound minds. We pray, oh God, that you would bless us with great decision-making, Lord. And Father, we pray that you would just bless each home that's represented in this room, Lord. We thank you and we praise you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. First and foremost, NPO transportation priorities. Mr. Kerr.
Thank you, Council. I've got kind of a mixed bag for you today. I knew you were all put the one spot there. So we've given you some handouts, and we'll kind of walk through some of that here real quickly. I want to try, and the mayor can help me, keep this kind of simplified, because this can get real weedy and crazy. But the main thing is that we need to, we're in the,
Oh, yeah. He's the only one excited.
Guys, you got three over
It's your Christmas gift.
So kind of the background on this is the Federal Highway Administration and the Texas Department of Transportation, they provide funding, and it's for on-system projects. So when we say on-system, that means state highways, federal highways. So like US 385, the Loop, I-20, those are on-system.
Will you go ahead and go over the on systems that we have in the city?
On-system that we have in the city, the Loop, you have the Interstate, you have Business 20 is on-system.
Second Street.
Second Street. US 385, which is Grant and Andrews, that's on system. County Road West is on system. And Faudree between 191 and I-20 is on system. All the way down, or it's just Business 20? It goes all the way down to
No, business one.
Business
And Tom,
20.
as on, just so everybody knows, because I know I get called all the time.
Yes, sir.
But that means that in terms of responsibility for repairs and other things associated, that is,
Textiles.
okay.
I'm
yeah.
sorry, Tom, would you just say real quick up to Second Street, the first couple you said?
Okay, we started, I mentioned the Loop, Interstate 20, Business 20, which is Second Street. The
Grant, I
Grant,
got it from there on, thank
and
you,
then, yeah.
thank you.
So what happens is they have a planning process. Metropolitan planning organizations are embodied in their regional groups, and we're in the Permian Basin Metropolitan Planning Organization. And so those are embodied to help administer funding that is provided through TxDOT and the Federal Highway Administration for improvements to our roadways. And as we talked about, on system is state roads. These monies are not usable on our roads. I like this. There we go. Okay. We're in the planning cycle. So this planning cycle is a 25-year projection, and it's updated on a 5-year basis. But it's a 25-year projection of projects that we want to try and fund. Projects are funded in the 5 to 10-year window, because that's really about as far as we can make practical decisions on potential money. We are currently in the 2015 to 2040 cycle. We are now starting to score, prioritize projects for the 2020 to 2045 cycle. The MPO has decided not to reevaluate the current, what they call fiscally constrained. Those are the ones that are, funding is already assigned, funding is available for. And that window is about 8 to 10 years. So what we have in the projects for the next 8 to 10 years, and we'll show you in a minute what those are there on. We're not reevaluating those. We're not checking to see if we want to sort them differently or anything like that. They're set. So the grading will be for the next phase of projects, which means the projects we're talking about aren't likely to be funded for at least 8 to 10 years beyond. And funds do sometimes come available that are not forecast. And so having this priority list, if funds do drop down, we can pull a graded project up into the fund. This is a map of the regional, the Permian Basin Metropolitan Planning Organization is this region, as shown here. And this is a combination of master thoroughfare plans for Midland, Odessa, Ector County, and Midland County. So this is just a demonstration of all the roads that are in the city's primary roads, as well as the TxDOT roads. Okay, 302, 385, there's anyway, so that just kind of gives you an idea of the breadth of the region. It goes up into Martin County, the northern parts of Midland. It's in Midland County and in Ector County. So we'll touch real quick, I don't have it here, but the MPO has an administrative body, it has a manager. That's not his title, but that's what I'm calling it, but Cameron Walker, and then he has a staff. There's a policy board, and that's the key board that makes the decisions for what happens with all these things. And that policy board, the mayor sits on right now. There's the mayor, the councilman from Midland, the county judge from Ector, a commissioner for Midland County, and it's the judge from Martin County.
Judge from Martin County, and then also voting members are TxDOT Executive Director, which is John Speed here, and MOUTD, which is Easy Rider at the vote.
So that's that board, that's the voting members of the board. And then there's a technical advisory committee, which Hal and Randy sit on, and that group works to try and put some of this stuff together to take to the board. So staff we're gonna be providing you a priority listing. Before we touch on this, let's talk about some of what we handed out. Okay, this free sheet piece here, the first page indicates the fiscally constrained projects for the next, from 2018 to 2027. So these projects are planned and going forward. Ones that we have, the 385 intersection with the loop up north, okay? So that's the first priority, first project in the schedule, and that's in design. They're acquiring right of way, and that one should be going into construction soon. The next Odessa project would be the 338 north at Yukon Road, and that's going to be on the east side. So that's Yukon on the loop, and that's under design as well. 191 at Yukon, that overpass, that interchange is in the funding. 338 north at 52nd, 56, that's a signalization. That is not an interchange, that is just signalization at that location.
Does everybody know what an interchange is?
I'm sorry. It's an overpass with roads that allow you to access the loop. Say it's the loop. The loop's an overpass. It allows the loop to get off and get on the side roads, and it allows the side roads to take on ramps to get on the loop. That's an interchange. Loop 338 north at West Yukon Road, they're showing signal improvements to go in there. Loop 338 at US 385 south, just like the one up north is in the projects. And there's some I-20 projects, several of those. 8th Street, West 8th Street, there will be an overpass going on the loop. So all of those are funded right now. Those projects are moving forward. They're in the schedule. And the map on the back will demonstrate, the third page will demonstrate those projects. It also shows Midland projects. Something you'll see on the map that will clarify is it demonstrates Yukon Road being funded, coming from the east loop, going all the way over to 1788, over to the airport. That is not funded anymore because the state legislature passed at the last session that they would not fund off-system projects. And that one's not on a state highway, it's not a state road, so it's not funded anymore to do that road.
part of what they call, the reason they have this constrained, TxDOT gives you a certain amount a year. And TxDOT has 12 funds. And if you wanted to make it any harder to deal with, you couldn't.
Yeah.
They've got 12 different funds that can handle different things. One's safety, one's, there's all varieties. They give you a certain amount of money at the MPO that you can use. Well, typically it's, you may get 25 million one year, you may get, in the past, you may have got 5. Well, what we're seeing now is the legislature is looking at the Permian Basin and saying, we are the driving engine of Texas right now. Unfortunately, most of the money goes to I-35 corridor in there because they have so many votes in the legislature. But sometimes they will say, okay, we want to kick some money out to the Permian Basin for the, oil impacted roads. And sometimes that money will come up and you can fund stuff off this list. And it pushes everything else, it pushes that money down because you got some from the state. Right now, Motran is working on getting $500 million from the governor to be able to address some of this, because we are gonna send $1.5 billion in severance tax for last year from the Permian Basin. And we're still getting the same amount of money we were 10 years ago. Well, you've been on the roads, they tear up fast, and we see what's going on in our communities. We know 56 is dangerous, 87 is dangerous, and those haven't come to the top. But that's why we're working on trying to go down there, and it's gonna take some travel. I'll probably go, Mayor Morales will go, just to tell him, hey, we're giving you all this, all the money that goes in the rainy day fund is coming from the Permian Basin. We are funding that. And we feel like getting $500 million over 10 years is a good deal for that. And so we're gonna try to do that. One thing we've also done on these projects, when Tryon was chairman of TxDOT, he really set it so that we get the same amount of money. It's easier to plan that way, instead of saying, we don't know what we're gonna get next year, so we don't know what we're gonna do. So he kind of set it up so that it's kind of a pay to play. Yes, you have a project, it's important to you, but is it important enough to put money on? So what the previous council did was freed up $15 million from ODC, and we said, okay, if we put $2 million on this project, it moves it up the list. Because you as a council and a city said, this is important, and we're gonna put money on it. And we may sit down and talk about maybe putting $5 million more for the projects that are 10 more years down the road. Because that brings those projects up, ahead of maybe one for Midland, ahead of one maybe for Martin County. It just brings it up. And, it's
Is the 15 million already spoken for?
15 million, I think about 11 million's already spoke for it. But it depends upon what it is, it depends upon how much you have to put in. An overpass, at least $2 million. Some other projects, you may be able to put $500,000. But we've actually seen our projects come up because and we were one of the few, I think we were the first ones that ever used economic development money for textile roads. And it's made a difference. So it's all a game. You just gotta play the game. So
Even like the interstate projects and stuff like that, we end up sometimes, so some of the fundings, other than what the category 2, you compete across the state. And so the project, if it has contributions from local, it helps compete like that. I'll get that to you, I'll get it to Michael and get that to you, that list from the MPO, ODC.
Peggy's got a question real quick.
No, I just was gonna say, I talked with Tom Craddock last night and about the proposal that he and Brooks have advanced to us get back some of that money. And I said, is there something that we can do as a community? I mean, do we write millions of letters? And he said, just pray.
Because
But,
Dallas isn't gonna give it back to us.
but it's a great, at least it's a valiant effort
Well,
trying.
they have to look at us now because I gave you this information, I'm gonna pass this around from Motran. It's really scary what the Permian Basin is doing right now as far as money, but it shows you the deaths. And we are 15% of the deaths in the state of Texas on the highways, with 1.5% of the population.
Wow.
So we're the number 5 district as far as deaths. We're ahead of Houston. And it's just, you know, I'm feared only it's gonna be worse.
Fatalities from 2016 are up 97%.
No, it looked like they were averaging about almost one a day.
It's almost 1 every 29 hours. So, go ahead, Tom.
Thanks, sir. I'm providing a list to you that we'll talk about in a moment. I've got a ranking on that list that I put together based on my understanding of what the mayor, the city, chamber, but anyway, y'all need to look at that list and see what your thoughts are on it. In doing the grading, they've asked us to call out a project as either an A, a B, or a C. And the reason is that the number of projects across the city of Midland and the counties is about 100 projects. And so they're saying that, one, we can't feasibly pay for all those, and two, that the grading, trying to score all of those projects would be difficult. So they're wanting us to kind of set an A as a top priority projects, a B and a C. And they're only gonna score the A's right now. So, we tried to do that task on here a little bit. Y'all can look at it and see, and we'll talk about it a little bit, but, so A projects will be graded, B and C's are not planned to be graded. Projects will have another chance to be graded in 5 years. Project that is not graded is not eligible, even if money comes down. At least that's been the history. If money comes down and that project hasn't been graded, you're not gonna be able to use the money for that project. You'll have to have a graded project. So we're asking you to review these ABC levels as well as the review of the prioritization. The map that you're given, you want to put the map up, and we'll kind of go through this list. We don't even go through it thoroughly, but yes, this is the map he's going to pull up.
One project that's in the works that's not funded by the MPO, but you need to know about it. They are changing Interstate 20, what is it, 35 miles? From 34 miles,
Actually 40 miles.
40 miles. They're changing the access roads to one-way. Because we're one of the few places in the state that has them that way. People aren't gonna be happy, or business owners will be mad, but from a safety standpoint, you got people coming off at 55, and you got somebody coming this way that doesn't stop. And that's, unfortunately, speed better.
Major design study is underway on the interstate across from the west side of Odessa to the east side of Midland. That project's underway right now. Current projections on total cost for that project is $400 million to do the frontage roads and $400 million to do the main lanes, add a third lane each direction. Now you need to do the frontage roads first so that you can work on the interior lanes, so you can dump the traffic off there. And if they're 2-lane roads, it's not gonna work, so they're looking at the one-ways. And the one-ways are really more efficient, they're a lot safer, they really are. But, so, in looking at the map, the red colored areas are areas that we have called out as A's, as A projects. The blues are B projects, and the yellow are the C projects. Now, this is just what we've put together. This is, for y'all.
So the purpose of today is really for you to look at this list and give us any input that you may have on whether or not this is how we would like to proceed in terms of priority.
And so, like on the number, like 1 through whatever, you don't have to give that to us today or anything and that kind of thing, but we do want to know if you see something that you want addressed.
Tom, is that that yellow, is that I-20?
Business 20.
That's business. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
sir.
80, Second Street or whatever.
Whatever it is now.
Yeah. Okay.
So as we look at the list, the first project that we've called out is the 52nd, 56th actually being an interchange. Right now, they're just putting signals up. It is shown in the current projection not to happen until 2037. And so this one really, we've had fatalities on it. It's a really important interchange for us. So we'll have UConn in place at that point on the loop. And then we'll put in this 52nd, 56th interchange. The next one we have called out is the 2nd Street to 10th Street downtown project for improving Grant down here. This one is gonna be a difficult one to get TxDOT to fund, but it's a project that if we can get them to work with us on and things like that, really is good for our economic development downtown with all the investment we're making. So we've got that at the second point here. The next project is this stretch of Yukon, the loop from 385 north down to Yukon. And the point there is we have Beaton Bow developments, we have developments that are getting right up to the loop. And what we want to do is put in the frontage roads so that we can get the traffic off the loop onto the frontage roads and get that secured before people really start trying to build too much there. And so that's why that project's at this level. And you'll already have Yukon at that time. So if somebody gets on the frontage road, they can come down to Yukon, flip around to go up, etc. So it'll provide for pretty good traffic that way, and it'll help us get further along. The next project that we have called out is the loop 338 on the west loop right here, and an interchange right here, so that truck traffic won't have to stop at Yukon.
Part of the problem,
That's one where we've had a lot of fatalities as well.
part of the problem is, on the west side, when you're going up towards 385 north, it's 2 lanes. And if we're gonna keep the trucks on there with volume stressors, we've gotta make that a split for 2 and 2, just to make it safer, and just to, because we don't want those trucks in the city.
Next, we're looking at the Grandview overpass or interchange right here. And so that'll allow us to route traffic in that area. Then we're looking at I-20 Western Junction, US 385 South. That's this leg of the loop. That's a 2-lane section. We're looking at then it being split with 2 lanes each direction. I don't know that they would be doing frontage roads out then, but they could. And so that would help with that truck traffic that we're trying to route around or down out on the west side. And then the next project, actually those 2 are switched on the list, I'm sorry, but that'll be the next. The first project is actually the northeast segment. I didn't resort before I printed. You'll see 6, over here on the very right is the 1 through whatever. And then right here under tier are the A, B's, and C's. Don't worry about a lot of the rest of this stuff. That's all gonna get handled with the TAC and stuff like that. So don't concern yourself with that. But, so the next segment would be from Yukon up to here. And that would be splitting that to two sets, split highway, 2 lanes each way.
One of the things we did when we started talking about downtown redevelopment, we said, okay, the way 385 is right now, it actually goes straight through town. We didn't want the trucks. We didn't know they were gonna be this bad, but we just didn't want them in. So what we were working on is getting 385 designated on the west loop, because then if you wanna build retail, you've got a significant amount of traffic going on the west loop for retail and development that way. Because if you're putting in a box store, they wanna know the traffic on the road, and that's the key, so.
Once you've done that with the Yukon interchange, with bringing this to freeway status, and this section with freeway status, you can have free flow on the loop, okay? So it improves the flow of that truck traffic, should keep them from wanting to go anywhere else, and so that's a big step.
So to kind of elaborate on that point, so if you consider our loop today, you have so many stops. And the true loop, you never have a stop. You have off ramps, but you don't have to stop. So that is the ultimate goal for us.
One thing that we've noted, I-20 is about 60% in schematic design. They're indicating that they want the loop to then be a stop and the interstate to go as an overpass. We've made comment on that, but I don't know, they consider that a step, okay? So then later they'll come back and upgrade that interchange. But we have made comment on that, but right now that would be the only stop that you would see at this point.
Which isn't bad, because at least
Yes,
it
sir.
slows the traffic a little.
Yes, sir.
And are they proposing to stop on the east loop as well, though?
We have that.
Yeah, at the university.
At I.
No, on
I-20.
Right.
No, sir,
No? Okay.
I don't believe so.
How would they handle that?
I-20 would go over the loop.
Okay.
The loop would then have to stop, right? No,
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 would
it
be-
doesn't, that's
would
right, yeah.
Probably be
We're-
a signal down below, but I-20 would go over, so.
It does have a stop right now, and yeah, I would expect it stays as a stop for now. Okay. Yeah, and this,
And there is some over, they are gonna put an overpass, they said, when they go one lane or one way on the access roads, if you miss that, the loop, you have to go 1788. So what they're gonna do is put a Fawdry overpass so that you can make a loop and come back, so you don't go all that.
So you don't-
Luckily, that will be funded a different way, out of a different fund. Like I said, if you wanna mess it up, you can mess it up any better.
both of these overpasses are in funding. The one over I-20 and the one over the interstate.
At Fawdry.
But when they're funded, give you a little bit of an idea, it takes 2 years for the engineering. Because you have to get right-of-ways, you have to move utilities, if you have to buy these land, you have to go through that process. So when you get a project funding, you're still looking 3 years out. And so it gives you an idea how far we're actually looking out.
So then the next project will be Yukon to 52nd, so we're kind of moving back and forth, but that gives us an opportunity not to disturb the same stretch all the time, depending on how they fund it, of course, but, so that would help us get Yukon to 52nd Street with frontage roads. We would have an overpass, we'd have an interchange at Yukon and 52nd, so you'll have Texas turnarounds, you can go around underneath and switch directions. The next one is Yukon Road to State Highway 302. And this section is a split section. So it would primarily be to start developing frontage roads and, the roadway's probably in pretty bad shape anyway, but. Then 52nd to 191 on this side. Then, an interchange at, let's see, 91, then US 385 south to FM 3503.
Can you scroll down just for a second, or scroll up, for a second? That blue line inside, where it ends right there, what street is that? No, at the bottom. What
It's
street
County
is
Road
that?
West. That's
Oh.
County Road West.
Okay.
But this is Yukon.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Oh,
that-
running
You're
east,
asking-
west? The one,
But
what's
this is-
running?
This is Yukon.
That's
Yeah,
Yukon, east,
This is where it
west.
comes down to and stops is Yukon.
That's a pretty busy street too, is it not?
Yes, sir. And it's a 2-lane stretch, so.
Okay.
That's one of the things we talked about last year is 42nd is TxDOT road. We've got to get the traffic off there, and that's one of the reasons why we're looking at Yukon and making the connections with the loop on the north and the east and the west is to be able to hopefully divert some of that, push it over on Yukon and send them that way. Because you're not going to expand 42nd. You know, there's things you can do with the markings and maybe islands, things like that, but it's still going to be dangerous. So.
87th Street. Oh, no, I'm sorry, with 385 south. What we're doing is improving the, to split highway from here over to 3503. And then the next one we've got is the interchange at 87th Street on the loop on the east side. And that's we see a lot of traffic there. The next one would be to go ahead and finish up that segment of the southeast of the loop from 3503 on up to I-20. And then an interchange at 3503. Some of these are gonna be out in 20 years, so this is getting out further now in terms of time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Then an interchange up at 100th Street. Then an interchange here at Bates Road. 100th Street, we project that to be a freeway on the outside of the loop, similar to 191. It'll go over and tie to the Craddock Highway, is what's projected for the long term. And then we have Batesfield Road. There's a lot of truck traffic there. There's a fueling, a whole wholesale fueling station over on Grant, right there. There's a ton of road trucks going in and out of there.
Is that granted what again?
Grandview. I'm sorry.
South Grandview.
Oh, okay.
So Tom, is this ranking, is this the ranking no matter what the cost? I mean, is this one of those things where I could do 3, 4, 5 for the same price as I could do 1, so I would wanna do 3, 4, 5? Or is it this ranking is what you suggest, no matter what the cost and what the monies are?
Right, that ranking is what is the
It's on
city
scoring.
worth.
That's the other project. It has to go through scoring and see how they score.
So what we do is we start out by telling them what our priorities are, what we like. And,
Which would be this.
right, and that ranking has nothing to do with cost or anything like that. It's what the city sees as a way to develop. Like we talk about some of these things, like the frontage roads, one of the reasons we want to do that is to try and start making sure the right of way is established. It makes it easier for us to progress with putting on the interchanges and things. But yes, it's, the ranking is, or this ranking that we're going to give them is just based on what we feel the community's needs, wants. Then there's gonna be a scoring mechanism, all this stuff in the middle, okay? And that's gonna be where you get so many points for safety on the project, or if it doesn't have any safety component, you don't get any points. You'll get points for several things, and it'll rank them. The problem with this process is there's no weighted analysis of this scoring. So, you know, there may be a project that has some safety, but maybe not real safe, but it may have some other component that really makes it more important to us. Not more important than safety really, but some other components. And so you don't know how that scoring is gonna actually make that project fall. And in the end, the policy board makes the final decision on those rankings. So there will be another component to getting that the way it needs to be. And they do a good job. The mayor works real
That's
hard.
been discussed.
Is there any, I mean, is there any effort to try to make Midland and Ector somewhat equal, or is it
Actually,
just
this
how?
last one came in, when I came in, we had about 5 or 6 years of projects that were still there that are into engineering and heavy middle. We renegotiated this and it was about 60-40 us. Now, things are gonna change once they look at a project and say, okay, we may have to do this. But it's been there.
So we feel good that we can.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying, you know, these projects, this list may be 20 years out. But if we can go ahead and put some of that ODC money on it now, hopefully it'll start coming up. Because it's gonna be more important than another project that doesn't have it. And that's 20 years down. I mean, that money ODC's got plenty of time to make, it's just, it helps us with this.
And the mayor did a really good job on it, because coming out of TAC, the Texas, the Technical Advisory Committee, the funding was 3-1 for Midland. The projects were ranking out 3-1 in Midland's favor. And so we would have been much farther back out in that. And I'm telling you, it's not because of anything other than this is not a weighted system. It's not a well-analyzed weighting system and that type of thing. So anyway, the board really needs to make the ultimate decisions on that.
But this list that you gave us, 2018 to 2027, they're not on this list. This is for.
Correct.
Correct. But, you know, if the governor gives us 500 million, if we get some more, we may jump into that list because we may have funding.
Right, gotcha.
So, you know, that's kind of it's like playing cards, you just don't know until it's dealt.
And the next several projects of the A's are going to be the interstate. And the interstate's a top priority for the federal government as well as the state government, really. But we want to make sure we're in favor of the projects as well, so they do happen. Helps them compete. And then, you know, if we don't rank ours at all, and Midland ranks theirs, I'm not, you know, Midland gets theirs done, we don't get ours done. But no, we want to make sure that we're in good ground there too. So.
Peggy, you got I said I wasn't gonna pass it until it's equitable. And that didn't go
Out of
well.
curiosity, is there a traffic count on Loop 338?
They've had their traffic counts.
TxDOT does counts. I don't,
We hadn't had.
off the top of my head, I don't know what it is
Other than 87th Street, we ran one for a short term on.
Right.
for that left turn,
Right.
from northbound 87th or northbound loop onto 87th. That was a pretty sizable number with
They
all
did.
that, the school, the development out there, residential.
A lot of times TxDOT relies on our traffic counts.
Well, I was curious.
They don't always do all theirs. Sometimes it's, oh, we'll get it from Hal on what these streets. And so, you know, that's why a good street department is so important.
There's a traffic demand model that's been developed, and so that data is at the MPO, but so there is some of that type of information.
That's fine, just curious.
It's good, it'd be good to have it, to help us in some of those things. And so that gets you through most of the A projects that we have. The B projects, as you can see, this is the south segment of Grant. Again, we're talking pedestrian improvements, roadway improvements for downtown type of, well, the entire city development, you know, but it helps with getting people up downtown. We've got that on a B project right now. Then there's then as you were mentioning,
West County.
the West County Road West up here. The interchange here at Kermit Highway, we've got as a B project. Part of the problem with that one is we don't really know what to do. I mean, but about the main thing it'll probably end up being is that you would have direct connects. And direct connects are, so if you're coming down the loop and you want to get on the interstate, you don't have to go through, get off the loop, get through an interchange, get up there. Direct connect is just like a flying ramp, so you'll fly over and hit it. And so this is where we would expect direct connects probably coming from 302 to the loop on the outside. That wouldn't be called for on the interior. You're gonna be in town, you're gonna be stopping anyway. 191 needs to be flipped eventually. That should be an overpass for the loop instead of an overpass for 191. We've got that classified, this whole segment as a B. There's a lot to consider there. So we didn't throw it up as an A.
One of the things though that John Speed, the district engineer here, is actually doing is very smart. In the past, we had a busy road, we had a West Texas engineer engineering that, which he doesn't have as much experience with a lot of traffic. Now they're actually working with the Houston district on some of these projects where we have a lot of traffic. They deal with more traffic and they understand it a little better. So they're actually farming some of this out to Houston, which makes some of the roads a lot safer. You know, especially with some of the, you look at the interstate, some of those short little get-offs, I mean, dangerous. So,
Say like this 191, well, an example here is that a lot of times we plan too short term. It was probably easier to do that than it was to elevate the loop. It probably looked like, or it may have been less expensive. It probably didn't have to buy as much right of way in order to do that. And so sometimes we look too short term. And then when you want the loop, which a loop typically you want to be a freeway, then you've got to completely reverse that. And so, you know, sometimes we spend money that comes back to be not as beneficial for us, we have to redo it or something. And so, one of the things that TxDOT's doing, and we've worked hard to get them to do as well on the entire loop, is a study. And they've now initiated a study to plan for the long-term loop development. So, where all are we gonna put in, say, direct connects coming off interchanges? You want direct connects going onto 191. We want direct connects on each of the 385s. We want direct connects on the interstate. And so that study is going on right now. But I guess one of the first things that we really would ask for you maybe tonight is if you have any thoughts on the Bs and Cs. I would guess you're okay with the A's as far as the projects. Whether it's the first project or 10th doesn't matter today. But do you want any of the Bs moved up to A's or vice versa or anything like that? Those are 158. They're really not projects that we requested, not that they shouldn't happen. These are TxDOT requested projects, so we didn't put them high on our ranking.
So back to your question, Tom, the Bs, there's some smaller ones, but the significant ones would be West County Road up at the north,
Yes, sir.
the section of BI 20 up to 191,
Yes, sir.
correct? And then from Second Street essentially to 20, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the current highway.
Kermit Highway interchange.
So what would push, whatever you guys wanna call it, business 20, whatever, 80? What would push 80 to be? It seems like there's a lot of traffic flowing in between. You know,
Oh, the
each
two
point
cities and
of-
everything?
Yeah, in between, what would push that to a B status? Or
Uh,
what could push it?
As far as the ABC, that's entirely, each community's gonna make a rating. Midland will deal with theirs, the business 20 between the two, both of us could say, if you would prefer that be an A versus a B or a C, I mean, we've got ours as Cs right now, then that's what we can do. It's a community thing. This is not really an official, it's a methodology that they're developing to try and grade.
Yeah, I would say that based on all the effort we're making downtown, that extension, that improvement from Second to I-20 is really important too, because you get off of I-20 sometimes to come into downtown. And I think that area is gonna be just as important as an extension of downtown than just this little, 6 or 7 blocks. So I think if you drive there, that street could use that. I mean, I personally would like to see that as maybe not the top A, but I'd like to see it, it's important, I
I think you'd almost have to break that up, because that's that project would be $100 million with that length.
think, for that.
She's talking about
I'm
this one
talking
right
about
here.
that.
Oh.
Yeah, this one's actually two different projects. Right.
No, I'm talking about the,
Right.
South
Yeah.
Grant Street.
yeah,
Street.
I'm talking
That is
about
a-
making
Grant Street
Grant
improvements.
look
That is
good
great.
all the way from
Yeah.
Second to the I-20 instead of just the other way.
That would be consistent with what we pointed out in our comprehensive master plan.
Right,
So,
Everybody good with moving that to
it
May?
would be.
Okay, we'll move that up to an eight.
What kind of numbers, what kind of money's on that?
The numbers for money on here
I know,
are
it's-
not necessarily correct.
Is there
These
money
came
on
from-
here?
Yeah, it's right here where it says, cost, but that's just a
Where it says what?
cost right here.
Oh, is
And
the
those
10,
are-
do you add millions behind that?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that what, this is in millions?
Some of these aren't, we have noted that some of these don't look correct even, but,
See, it just says 3 million.
yeah.
I mean, that's,
I think coming into debt, I think we need to really, in our comprehensive plan, I mean, we really need to be concerned with what people see when they come into it.
Can I say this? So before we do that, are we going to do some type of, for lack of better words, some type of austerity plan for the businesses on that? The older buildings, more so toward Second Street. You follow what I'm saying, in between Second Street and, what is that, Clements, all those buildings? Are we going to do some type of austerity plan to spruce that up, to make it more attractive for them to?
That's
Or
not-
should I
I
ask
think
you
that goes
guys?
more towards the minimum building standards. When we established that ordinance, we just kept it to a small area downtown because there were a significant amount of buildings. And we kept that pretty tight, but now that's something that, once we got some of them cleared out and some of them are painted, we can widen it out to where we want it. But it just affects commercial, it doesn't residential.
Right.
There'd be a couple of other options as well. I mean, we could, for example, we currently have a facade program, an infrastructure program for downtown. I think inevitably, we need to extend that down. Also, if we are successful with the tourism downtown, that can be exported to other areas of the city that need that level of investment, so we can export it to that southern portion as well.
Correct.
That would generate dollars so we can make those sort of improvements.
Correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we speak about that in another council session that we were going to?
Yes, sir.
in fact,
That-
do
that-
for that?
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Is this
That
something
and the
we have
Long
to
Clemens
decide
and those other
tonight?
areas as well.
I think if we wanna move that one up to an A,
I mean, I know that one, but
Yeah.
I'd like to drive and look at some of these.
Yeah, and that's something that, I mean, yeah, it needs to be cleaned up, it's just pedestrian.
I mean, that one's fine, I was just, some of the others, I.
Yeah, I mean, that
And we'll be happy if you feel like, if you feel like the County Road Westman needs to be an A. It's not like we're making a hard and fast decision that affects everything. It just makes sure that at least it's graded and looked at.
Right.
And so.
they don't wanna grade the whole list, they just wanna grade
Right.
what we-
So how many can be on the list A?
the many as we want.
They didn't give us any.
We could conceivably make all of it good.
Yes, sir, we could.
But in Midland's gonna call theirs A's.
Well,
Some of
and
those-
if they're all A's, that sort of feels like we didn't really put a lot of thought in it. I mean,
And some of these are pretty far out, but, and one note that I'll make, on some of these, you'll see where they're described, it'll say like EB to SB or something. That's eastbound to southbound. NB is northbound, that kind of thing. So if you're and that's in talking about these direct connects. So if you're going northbound on 385 to eastbound on 338, that kind of thing, so. But a lot of those are going to be long-term. They're not gonna happen very quickly, very easily.
And Tom, all of these, with the exception of the one on 385, somehow or another, all tied to the loop.
Yes, sir.
Which is gonna be key.
how does this compare to the list that, you know, that ad hoc transportation committee that Lee Allen chairs?
This is more expensive of that list. Many of these projects were on that list.
On that list?
But some of the priorities on that project were the Yukon. That was one of the top priorities on that list, was Yukon from the loop going over to the airport. And we're just not able to get money for it. Faudree was part of that on the north of 191. So those were some of the lists that are on the chamber committee. And once y'all done this, we'll send them some information on that as well, make sure that Roy knows.
Part of that Loop 40 is what they call it, which is a loop around the airport. And they wanna run Yukon over there, well, that's Midland County. So that's something Midland County needs to address. And if they wanna build it, then they can build it. That way, you know.
That last mile before you get to 1788 is even outside of the cities. There's an agreed division line, ETJ line between Midland and Odessa. It becomes Midland County and Midland City of Midland.
It's the airport city.
Is there any opportunity at a joint venture we could do with them to kind of share?
Trans is working on
Okay.
it. The purpose of that light there on 1788 in the airport was to carry it on out.
Is it 20?
Yeah,
Well,
no,
to-
over
191.
191.
Okay, I'm, yeah.
Or under, I don't know whether it'd be over or under.
From an administrative perspective, they're, just to give you the full background and everything though, is that type of road, as you'll note now, is being built by the developers. We participate in part of the cost, but the developers build the road. What happens if we start trying to use, say, this money for it, is that like 87th Street, we went out there and we rebuilt 87th Street, and we had a pro rata agreement with the developers on each side. You know, as you plat, you'll pay part of the road. If the state pays for this portion for that developer, then the next developer wonders why we don't use money to do his part, if it's not a state highway or something. Because the one when we did this, when that developer asked me, that was before we'd had even Yukon on the list, that developer asked me, you know, why don't you get the state to build it or pay for it? And so that kind of comes up as a conversation.
Okay, any questions?
Gosh.
Now, go over that one more time.
Any questions, give us a call, but really it just comes down to, we want to make sure that you know what we're doing, and so that you're, you know, that if you do have a problem, let us know.
So Tom, it's safe to say that if the council has any changes or like would want any additions, just to note those, get to me, and that'll be the list we can make.
Yes, sir.
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Number one on the list, you know, that 42nd, 46th, and at 338?
Yes.
Where on the original it's just for a signal, correct? And
They-
then we're looking at it for an interchange. So if they were looking at the projected year on, just the signal was 2022, tell me again what that's gonna do. Would they go ahead and, I mean, if this goes through as proposed, then potentially, would that still be a 2022?
That project's awarded.
Yes.
They're actually.
For the signal?
The signal
The
project.
signal is, yes,
And what
but
they're-
not for the interchange.
Right, and what they're doing is they're having to do road work on each side of the loop because it's not conducive to signalization. I mean, if you had a green light and you went through there, you might end up 10, 20 feet off the ground. But So they're making road work changes and then
Yeah.
putting in the signals. But when they decided to do that, they dropped the interchange down to 2037. They said, okay, we don't need the interchange until 2037.
Plus you're in to buy more property too, we do that.
Yes.
Part of it is, you got a huge problem there, you gotta do something, you'd rather go ahead and put a signal there,
Right.
at least help.
Yes.
Because of that.
That's what I was wondering about, if we're still gonna
Signal's about a
have.
year out, nothing.
2037 is what they have.
So that's our number one running.
We'd like to bring that one up.
We don't
yes.
bring it here.
At one time, it was, but yes, we'd like to bring that.
So is the money lost by putting the signal in, the 4.8 million?
There will be road work that is effective. The signals itself will not be, they'll be taken out. So there is some money that, it's kind of the long-term planning versus the short-term. But you really need to do something pretty quickly because that intersection is bad.
It's just,
It is.
you know, staggered, and that's the problem. All right, anything else?
Good job, guys.
Tom, thank y'all very much.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Okay, next one is review council agenda items. Let's see, Councilmember White is going to do our pledges.
Yes, sir.
And any proclamation of awards?
I'm gonna comment.
Any questions on the consent agenda? Okay, then we go down to ordinances. It's the ordinances for the speed limits. That's counts, I think that's the same ones. Then we have two resolutions. Resolution approval of the, in opposition to the revenue cap. And I'm sure we may have a few citizens speaking on that. So if we do have some citizens, I'm gonna let them speak before we start talking about it. Then we have a approval of support for the census. There's no money on that, it's just.
No, just our support for the process.
But they need money,
They will
right?
at some point, we will come to you at some point with a request for funding for the effort.
We should need to talk to the county and see if the county's gonna do anything. So, then we go up to appointment of boards. We will appoint these boards unless there's,
Right, okay, these appointments need to be made, since you all already made the appointment, we no longer need to consider him. So these are the ones listed are the only ones that need to be appointed or reappointed. And like Eddie Reber, he's already appointed, so he's
Okay.
officially on the,
Gotcha.
board.
Okay.
These haven't had any action taken, the ones listed
it's
there.
just housekeeping.
Yes.
But we don't have to make that decision today.
These we will, they said they want to serve, continue to serve,
Okay.
correct?
I haven't been able to reach all of them yet.
I'd like to talk to my appointees first before
Okay.
I decide
Okay,
if I want to reappoint some of them.
okay.
Do you have the contact information?
I do, I'll send that to you, I'll email that to you.
Okay, so we need to approve without,
I'm ready to do all mine.
You ready to do all yours? Okay.
okay, so if anybody wants to pull theirs off, Malcolm's gonna pull his off, but we can go ahead and approve the ones that, the rest of them, unless anybody has a change.
Have you know?
Most of yours, I think so. I think yours are okay.
What about, last time we did the appraisal district?
Correct.
And we put Lori Ruiz on there?
Correct, yes.
Barbara Graff talked to me about that and said that that is supposed to be a council member on there. she has always been in that, but that the regulations say
No,
that a
it's-
council member should be there.
In the past, it was,
Mickey Jones.
Mickey Jones.
It has never been a council member
the whole time we were on here.
Well, was Barbara on, I mean, she was on it, 'cause she,
Nikki got off, and Barbara said, I want to serve on it, so
She was
Put
just
Barbara on it.
appointed of January of 18,
okay.
and she,
Well, she
it's a
really-
council appointment, but not a, city council member.
you'd have to check the
Appointee.
bylaws.
Okay,
But it's
well,
not-
and I said, well, Tom is on it, and she said, but not as a council
That's what
member,
I
he's
told her, too.
representing the, but she said, but a council member's supposed to be on there, and I really wanted to stay on
That's
there.
not
and
true.
I said, well, if
There's,
you,
there's
if you
only one
believe,
school board member on there, and there's 4 representatives of the school.
anyway, she
We
was,
can check it.
she
We
was
can check it.
concerned
I'll double
about
check.
why she
She
did
just said
not get to stay
it's
on
not.
there.
She came to my
I remember
office and
very
I did
vividly.
talk to her about it, and try to explain to what council was doing.
Gary said he checked it, and
Yeah.
it does not, it's a council appointee.
Yes.
Well, I also told her that one of the reasons we didn't consider is because we didn't have an application from her.
Okay. So,
We didn't,
No,
right?
ma'am, we did not.
so if anybody wants to pull theirs off, we'll just need to note that. Then we go to boards and commissions. MOUTD, Armando,
He is willing to serve.
okay, then we have the mayor's drug and crime commission.
That's pretty much set by the bylaws. It goes by positions of leaders in the community.
Okay. Then citizens' comments, and then we will go into to executive session. So, any questions?
If there are comments in regards to the House bill, is that gonna be you and?
Yeah.
I don't
I've
know,
got
we don't
it.
need everybody.
I've got the information.
Okay. Good enough.
Okay.
Mayor, did you find out if I was or was not on the
You are.
fireman's retirement?
Yeah, Mike said he's just gonna walk away from everything. He said, felt like that was in the best interest. And I said, that's fine. So, but you're on there anyway, so.
Okay, well, I didn't know, you know, we said just put it off for a couple of months, so okay.
Okay, we got those. Celebrating Champions of Education.
Let me go back to Baker.
Sure. Running low.
Bartender, anybody else?
5 minutes.
Council, I think.
Anything else?
No,
You're
she
fine.
told me you didn't.
I think
want
you
it.
all know or remember Dr. Vega. The city has struck up a good partnership, I would say, Dr. With the school district, in particular, the education partnership, where we're trying to provide support for one another. Dr. Vega is here today to talk about something that they are engaged in that we think is critically important that you be aware of, so I invited him to come speak with you today.
Awesome.
All yours.
Mayor Turner, City Council members, so first of all, I want to thank y'all for allowing me to come and I guess personally invite y'all. So y'all may or may not have heard, but on March 26th, there is going to be a major historic event honoring educators in the region. And the reason I'm saying this is a historic event is that that's my knowledge. I don't know if anything like this has ever been done. And not only has it never been done, but not at this scale. And what I mean by that is if you look at the bottom, this is really bringing both communities together. And I would even say it's even bigger than both communities. So if you look down here, this is both cities are going to be participating. The chambers of commerce from both cities are participating. Both Odessa College, Midland College, UTPB, MISD, ECISD, Greenwood ISD. And these are the ones, the Education Foundation from both school districts, and then also there is a collective impact group here in our community. If you're not familiar with that, I'd love to come back and actually speak to y'all about the education partnership of the Permian Basin. We're right in the middle of all things education, right alongside the PSP and some of these other things, other entities. And then there's another group in Midland called Educate Midland. The point of that being is that all of those individuals have come together for one purpose, and that's really to honor all educators. And when I say educators, we're not strictly speaking about teachers. We're also talking about if you have committed your life to education, you're invited. And so what that means is if you're a bus driver, if you're a teacher assistant, if you're a custodian, if you're a food service worker, we all know the challenges that our school systems are facing. Right now, I met with Stacy Ashley. She's in the HR department for ECISD. ECISD currently has 230 plus teacher vacancies. Okay, that's just teacher vacancies. That's not employee vacancies, right? I think the district has up to 400 employee vacancies because TAs leave, custodians leave, maintenance leave, workers leave because of other opportunities, right? And so the purpose of this event is to bring all educators together. The community is going to rally behind them and basically say thank you. We appreciate you. We want to love on you. We want to pamper you. And so it's going to take this many people to exactly. We're actually going to have massages. We're going to have massages, hand massages. Both Odessa College and Midland College, their physical therapy students are going to be there. There's going to be food. There's going to be entertainment. This individual, Dr. Danny Brazel, he's going to be the keynote speaker. You can Google him if you want to kind of get a flavor for what he's going to be, what his message will be. And so we're looking, it's going to be at the Wagner Noel, okay? And so I am personally inviting you. I know y'all might have a city council meeting at that time. If y'all do, I know ECISD is actually moving their school board meeting so that they can attend. I spoke to the mayor of MISD at a function now, and I said, well, y'all might have to move y'all's because I'm going to ask city of Odessa, but he said theirs is in the morning, so I guess it's not going to be an issue. But they're going to be in attendance as well. So if y'all have the opportunity, please come. I don't know what it would take for y'all to move y'all city council, if y'all have ever done anything like that or moved it up. But if this is something that we as a community can come together, and I would imagine if I asked each of you around this table, do you know an educator? It might be your personal family member. You might be a former educator, right?
Yes.
No, exactly, right? No, I know. But I'm saying it might be your daughter, it might be your niece, it might be your cousin, it might be whoever, right? And so this is a way for us to come together as a community and literally just show our appreciation, to them. There's going to be door prizes. There's going to be food. We're looking at everybody getting a free T-shirt. And so it's going to be a major event. It's called Celebrating Champions of Education. And so if y'all have any questions, do y'all have any questions?
Any questions? Thank you for your hard work.
Yes.
Really appreciate everything you're doing for education.
Oh, well, thank you. Absolutely. It's a group effort, and so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, just from a sense of direction, council, we don't have an issue moving our council meeting. I know it impacts your schedules, your daily schedules, but we could conceivably have it earlier in the day. That way, if you were interested in attending this event, we could certainly try and be done by 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Well, we have at 1:30
We have that.
strategic
Yeah, we
planning that afternoon, but
We
we
could
could
move it
just
in
start
Wednesday.
that.
I
Yeah,
would
we,
certainly appreciate any consideration, not just for myself, but because
I
the
agree.
educators do need your support and they need to see your faces.
I agree.
And they need to know.
So
that
we
you're
start
there.
at noon?
Yeah, we're
1:30.
starting at 1:30 on strategic planning, but if we did that at noon and backed everything up, we could be through by 5:30.
I think I'm exactly right. We need to be out there because it's easy to say
Absolutely.
education is important, but if you're out there shaking hands saying, hey, we
And
appreciate
we're short
you. and we-
200 teachers, the teachers who we do have are filling the.
Yes.
Well, they have to be.
Yes.
And that, along with housing, are two of the
Yes.
most critical issues
Absolutely.
in this town, so.
We can work with Norma to adjust that schedule to accommodate.
So two closing, well, that'd be awesome. Two closing remarks. So so the mission statement for the Education Partnership is we're working on creating a place where students love to learn, teachers love to teach, and people love to live. Okay. This is an embodiment of that. Now imagine if you're a first year teacher or a custodian or whatever you are, and you go to the Wagner Noel and there's a drum line out there and UTPB and there's excitement and there's volunteers telling you thank you, and you walk in and it's a festive environment and you get something to eat and you get a massage or whatever it is and you get a cup of coffee, you go into the Wagner Noel, it's packed, and they see the mayor, they see city council. And by the way, if y'all do plan on going, which it sounds like y'all are, if you could let me know or Michael register, so that way, because we're gonna have special seating, like for dignitaries and things of that nature. And so there'll be a part where we will recognize, at least we'll say, you know, how amazing would it be if both mayors are there, right? If both city council are there, if both superintendent, or all three superintendents, because Greenwood ISD. But here's the thing, we have people who are participating, you know, it might be Monahan's is gonna show up. And so this is really about our entire community. So by y'all actually moving this and attending, that is gonna send a huge message to the broader community. And that's really what this is about. It's about just saying thank you and support. And so y'all's presence would go a long way.
I'll be there.
Okay,
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
That wakes me up, I'll be there.
Shirts
okay.
made for
Thank you.
council with the city logo on it.
Sure.
If we could do something like that, that way everybody sees your face, but they don't know where they know you, and that way they see it. It's,
If what?
if you had a shirt that said
Oh,
council member.
yeah, I always like your shirts.
And Mayor, you had just,
They're like, who are you? And I'm like, that's.
and you had just said it, I mean, it's not just to go and just sit, if y'all could be there, because the doors open at a certain time, but it won't begin, we won't be going into the auditorium or the performance, you know, until a little bit later. So part of this event is just the fellowship or the telling people thank you. So how cool would it be if, you know, if y'all even had a sign that said, thank you, Miss Johnson, my 4th grade teacher, or whatever, I don't know, I mean, but that's the whole point.
We want to be a part of the drum line.
I know.
We can make it arrange, I can arrange it. Well, I'll arrange it. Whatever role y'all want to play, I will arrange it. The fact that you are there, it's gonna be a big deal.
I remember my kindergarten.
Thanks.
Okay, appreciate it, guys.
Thank you. See ya. Thanks.
Next, Odessa ODC audit, Ms. Muncy. Throw David out?
No. Been throwing me out. And I'm not gonna take up a lot of time.
It's yours.
This way. There's one. There we go. I just wanted to make you aware that the audit has been completed on the Odessa Development Corp. It was presented to them at their February board meeting and accepted by them. It is what we refer to as a clean report. There were no findings. So that's always the best news that you want to hear. If I can guide you to page 7. It's a top level comparison of year to year. So you can see total assets went from 47 million to 52 million. Your net position went from 37 million to almost 47 million. So it grew quite a bit. Your revenues, of course, our sales tax was extremely high this past year. So we took an increase from 9.6 to 13.6. And our expenditures were down some. I think some of our incentives, like the OC incentive, we expected to be a little higher, but it was only $400,000 for this year. So, if you'll turn back to, and this is in supplementary information, but I think it's a key thing for y'all to have. Starting on page 30, it gives the history of the incentives that have been paid by fiscal year. And the total is on the last page, page 35. So to date, it's been $44.1 million of incentives and grants that have been paid out by ODC. And on page 36, you'll see the commitments that are outstanding at this point. And I do want to mention that Summit is still showing on here. And I think y'all probably read all the information on Summit, but they're in bankruptcy and we can't be released from it until the bankruptcy is up. So we expect that obligation to dissolve. Okay. And then the last report at the back is a special report on internal control and compliance with the government auditing procedures, and it's a clean report back there as well. Okay.
Maybe if you have any questions, I can answer them for you.
This report does roll up into the city's CAFR, which you will be looking at in another month or so.
I do
We're
ask,
trying, we're trying desperately. We are, I will note that we are asking for an extension on that from the GFOA from March 31st to April 30th due to our lack of staff and being able to complete it in time. And we've also thrown the auditor's schedule off a little bit by being delayed, so that will come to you a month later. Thank you.
Thank you
I'm
for all
so
the hard work.
excited to have this budget.
It's almost got a tear in their eye.
If any, I mean, it is on the website, if you would rather look at it electronically.
She just likes to book.
Yeah.
Notice none of your fellow councilmen
Yeah.
got.
Nobody else cares about that great big book, but hey.
We do,
I just
but
threw
she
away
was
But she-
real.
yeah.
With happiness.
Oh, God. All right, number 6, boards and commissions. Anything?
No, just, Dee, I didn't know if you wanted to reach out to your board members. Would you like me to do it? I'll be happy to, what's your pleasure?
I will work with you on that.
Absolutely.
And, because I have no problem reaching out to them, I just don't have contact.
Okay.
Okay.
Tom, how about you?
I would need the contact.
Sounds
Will
great.
do.
Me too.
And the only one I still have is traffic advisory, right, that I haven't done.
I believe so.
And I was gonna ask Drew Crutcher to do that. I just, I mean,
Yeah,
I
because
told
I need to
him.
find someone to go on my place on traffic
Or
advisory.
traffic, and they rarely meet. They don't meet
No.
much. Well,
Well, I told Drew I needed a primer in traffic, and, you know, he was like I was with this. It was just, oh.
And next time we will need to appoint downtown Odessa, next meeting.
Downtown
Get
Odessa.
all-
And I have applications, so I will scan that and email
Thank
those
you.
to all of
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'm ready to do mine, okay, District 2.
Yes,
Okay,
I got you.
got it. Thank you.
I got mine, so. We got 19 minutes, so just don't
No,
talk
I'm
about
good.
anything official.